It is 8:33 WNIS, sunny day with a high today 48. Here's a gentleman we're going to talk to right now that I had the pleasure of meeting a while back with our buddy Nora, who's a contributor to the program. And this gentleman wrote an interesting book. I think we're interested in history, most of the people who listen to this show, and certainly World War II, where many of our fathers and grandfathers, or maybe your grandmother in some way was involved. And this gentleman's name is Lynn Johnson. He's a local guy. And the book is Warriors of the Forgotten Front by Lynn Johnson. Hey, Lynn, how are you today?
Good morning, Tony. Thanks for having me on the show.
It is a pleasure. I'm glad we finally got it squared away. We've been trying to do this for a while. Now, what I wanted to ask you about, and as I'm looking at the book and everything, it's historical, but it's fiction, but it's based on a true story, a story that's very close to you. I want to shut up, and I wanted you to explain it to me. Explain it to us. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure thing. The book is based on the first-hand accounts of my father, Sergeant Aaron Johnson, and his experiences in World War II as a combat infantryman in Italy. And I also included in the book the accounts of several of his buddies who were in his company, G Company, the 339th Infantry Regiment, who fought alongside him and who I had the pleasure of meeting when I joined my dad's Army reunion group.
Mm-hmm.
Dad passed away in 1998, and after that I sat down at my computer and wrote up everything I could remember that he ever told me, and it came out to about 50 pages of material that I thought at the time I would just share with family members.
Right.
But in 2003, I just happened into a writer's workshop with a wonderful lady named Lauren Strait, who is now president of Hampton Roads Writers here locally, and started writing about the things that my father had told me. The group liked it, and with their help and encouragement over about a 3 or 4 year period, it ended up being a book.
Now, had you written before?
Well, I'm retired from the General Accounting Office or Government Accountability.
So you were used to writing fiction.
So, well put. We wrote reports all the time. It was part of our regimen. But that type of writing compared to the creative writing I had to do for this book are totally different. But I had the discipline of writing.
Now, you and me are the same generation, and we're like the Oprah generation, and we talk about our experiences. But I tell you, my dad passed in 96, yours in 98. They were different, those guys, when they talked about things and stuff. Was it difficult for you to get it out of him? Was he good talking about it? Did you have to get a few drinks in him? Did you have to have, I'm serious, did you have to have him around his friends? Sometimes when they're around their contemporaries, they tend to open up. How did you get it out of him?
My father and I had a very special bond, I think. And he, with me, when the two of us were alone, he would talk about things, and most of it he told me during one particular long, hot summer in western North Carolina. We would sit on our front porch late at night to try to stay cool, and invariably he would begin to talk about things that happened to him in the Army, about guys that were in his unit, this and that, and of course, being 11, 12 years old, I just soaked it up like a sponge, and that's when most of it came out. But it had to be the two of us alone before he would open up.
Whenever you're talking to somebody like that, one of the questions you want to ask him is, "What aren't you telling me? What don't you want to tell me? What is bothering you?" And I'm sure that opening up and with that special relationship you had. Now, was your dad was born and raised where?
Western North Carolina, a little county out there in the hills.
How did he end up in the Army? What's the story on that? Did he get drafted? Did he enlist after Pearl Harbor? How did that happen?
Well, he was 19 years old and married my mother in February of 1943. He was 19, she was 17. Yeah. And then in June, he got drafted.
Oh.
Of course, the last thing he wanted to do was go to war, but he did, and he was a bit of a rebel. He had some incidents in basic training where he kept sneaking off to go see my mom, and ended up in the guardhouse for a while. And he told me that's when the Army broke me. That's when I realized that I could not beat the Army.
Oh, yes.
And after that, he settled down a bit and was sent to Italy and joined the unit just before the fourth assault on the Gustav Line that, as I'm sure you know, was anchored by Monte Cassino.
Wow.
And entered about 2 weeks after he got there. He was in a baptism of fire firsthand then.
Man, and I know you and I are the same age. I remember 20th Century, and you would see they talk about Monte Casino, and I just remember the building and the shooting and the smoke, and your dad was there, huh? Wow.
He was there. You may or may not know, the Allies had to launch 4 major assaults before they could take that line, extending all the way across the Italian boot, and had tremendous casualties. It was an extreme.
Well, we tend to focus on France, but that thing in Italy just continued to the last day.
Good point. In fact, that's why historians call it the Forgotten Front, and that's why I used it in the title of the book. Compared to Normandy and Belgium and those areas, very little is written about Italy in comparison. So, but the fighting went on, and as my dad said, it was always uphill. The Germans were always up high, and we were always trying to crawl up and get them out. It was an arduous and brutal battle, and
then it's shifting. You got the Italian government, the Italian army shifting loyalties. Mussolini's not in charge. Things are changing. These are holy structures. We're going to alienate 1 billion people back home if we blow this stuff up. Tricky situation those gentlemen faced.
Very, very tricky situation. And as they moved on up into the Apennine Mountains and into the even Italian Alps and up to the Austrian border, it just got worse and worse because the elevations kept getting higher and higher. And of course, as you know, the German infantry were outstanding and masters of defensive warfare. So it was a tough go for those guys.
Yeah. Now, was your dad wounded, or did he escape unscathed?
He was wounded. He had Purple Heart. I'm looking at them right now on the wall here. 2 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and I relate those things in the book.
Now, he's a young guy when all this is happening. He
was 19.
Well, we know how young that is now. Now, can I get this in the bookstore? It's Warriors of the Forgotten Front, L. Craig Johnson, a local guy. We've got to support our local authors. Where can people get this book?
It's on Amazon.com.
Okay.
It's available on Kindle and Nook. I think Barnes & Nobles will order it. They don't stock it per se.
How about, can they get it from you?
No, you can get it from me. Just email me, anyone who's interested, at ljohnson17@juno.com, or visit my website at lcraigjohnson.com.
All right. Now, the photograph on the front of the book, is that anything we need to know? Is that your dad, or what is that?
That's a photograph in a little booklet he had that was printed by the 5th Army, and I had selected another picture to be on the cover, and luckily for me, my daughter said, "Dad, this is the perfect picture right here. You got to use that." Of 3 wounded guys heading to the aid station or whatever.
With the tag that says what their wound is, right?
With the tag, says what their wound is, exactly. Yeah. So I'm very, very pleased and glad my daughter cued me to use the right photograph. I think it's perfect for the book.
Well, I'll tell you, you are an incredible man. You managed to get some points with your daughter during the course of the interview. You're a smart guy, L. Craig Johnson. Lynn, what a pleasure to talk to you. I want you to thank Nora so much for setting this up and getting us hooked up with you. And the book is Warriors of the Forgotten Front, L. Craig Johnson. It's a novel. Well, I'm sorry.
One last thing before I go. Look forward to seeing you again soon at the Forum, March the 13th, I think, with Kerry Doherty and so forth.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I certainly am.
Time. Okay.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, sir.
What are you doing there?
What am I doing? Listening.
Thanks a lot. All right, Lynn, good to talk to you.
Right. Tony,
be well.
Thanks so much.
Right.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. And the book is, he's a nice gentleman, Warriors of the Forgotten Front, L. Craig Johnson. Personable gentleman and just thinking about his dad. You got to love that, huh?